Okay, so hello and welcome everyone. Gosh, it's June 28th, 2022. This is crazy how fast time has flown by over the years, and the summer is flying by way too fast. So thank you all so much for being here tonight. If you haven't already, please click on the chat, make sure everyone's showing up, and let us know who you are, where you're from, where you're at, if you're wanting to start a business, if you have a business, things like that. We will try to be interactive, but also, as I mentioned, we have a ton of content, and I will just warn you, I can go off on rants and tangents and raves at pretty much all of this content. So we could be here for the next 24 hours, but Sue is keeping me on track tonight. So good luck. So we will try to do that. So some screens I'm going to fly through because I really want to get to Clarice and Sue. I mean, I was watching them work last night on Canva. I don't know if any of you guys have done Canva presentations together, but it was so cute because I was sitting here watching their little circles just work, and I'm like, oh, they're so smart. So very, very happy to have them both here, and they'll do their introductions here in a little bit. So, but again, thank you guys for taking your time to be here with us. So if you don't know me, my name is Kara Welke. I'm an occupational therapist of 22 years. Thank goodness I graduated in 2000. Otherwise, I would have no idea how long I've been an occupational therapist. I've pretty much been in every setting possible, wanted to start my own practice for years and years and years. A situation just kind of happened that I started it, and the reason why I feel I can go off on rants is because I'm the person that we're going to talk about tonight. I'm the person that refused to get help and tried to do everything on my own, and use Facebook to get started. And that led to some very costly errors and some things that legally could have been troublesome if I didn't figure it out sooner than later. And I'm also that person that did finally realize the benefit of investing in myself, in my business, and getting a coach and surrounding myself with literally the best people that still help me to this day. As Sue knows, that when I panicked yesterday after a $6,000 error my accounting and bookkeeping team made. So things still happen, and I'm at 14 staff. I just hired another PT, and I think 99.9% sure another OT. She's going to let me know for sure tonight. So we are growing, and super excited about it. So yeah, I may say some things that might offend some of you guys, and I don't mean to offend anyone. It's truly speaking from my own experience. I've been there, done that. And I just hope you guys will really think about what we're talking about and use it to make the right decisions. Because it's really frustrating when I see therapists starting these practices and trying to build them off of Facebook and asking questions that just make me like, oh my gosh, this is not okay. There's going to be problems for them. It's going to be problems for clients. It's going to be problems for us. It's literally not like setting up a lemonade stand, you guys. But people are doing it like it's the big style. Okay. So there's things you need to know. Even when I was researching setting up a lemonade stand, technically there's rules and regulations they're supposed to follow. And learn something all the time. So my practice is 4 years old. Oh yeah, I know. Last thing, 4 years old. I am a mobile therapist. We do tons of things. We do contract with home healthcare agencies. We're working on starting a clinic soon. I network and do a variety of projects with several different people. So that's a whole nother topic. Let's go to Sue.
I didn't think I was going to get a chance to get a word in. Kara and I have known each other for a couple of years, but we've never met in person. So stay tuned, you guys, because November we're planning a live event, and we are going to meet in person. But I have been an OT for 42 years. I keep saying I'm trying to retire, and people keep telling me I'm doing a very bad job of that. I have worked in every area an OT can work in a couple of different countries because I'm Australian trained. I have my PhD in research and stroke. I've been a college professor for over 11 years as well in 3 different universities. And so I've had my mobile practice, clinic-based practice now for 6 years. And mainly home safety, accessibility assessments. They do complex DME, wheelchairs, general occupational therapy. And then when the pandemic hit, and we were seeing a lot of people coming online trying to figure out how to do stuff, and Kara and I were talking, and we realized people were just doing things the wrong way and weren't understanding what was going on. And so we put together some of the courses, and then the home accessibility and safety therapist certification program. And so I guess it's just really important to meet people where they are, in our clients, and working in their homes between the home and my clinic has just been great to providing that. This is my second round of setting up a private practice as a relatively new grad, a couple of years in, many years ago. In Australia in 1980, let's see, how old's my son? 1984, so we're talking 38 years ago, I set up my first private practice in a mix of peds and consulting for workers' comp and doing ergonomic consulting and chronic pain. I've also helped set up a free clinic here around the chronic pain program and diabetes management courses and stuff for that. So a little bit about me.
Awesome. Thank you, Sue. And I'm super excited to have Clarice here. Clarice, you introduce yourself.
So I'm Clarice Grody. I'm an occupational therapist. I will admit I have a few less years of experience, and that I've only been out of school for about 4.5 years. So I graduated from Columbia University in 2018. I am a healthcare policy consultant. I offer CEUs, webinars, resources, podcasts, you name it. My full-time job is I run and founded Amplify OT. So that's my website where I offer resources primarily focused on occupational therapy and focused on Medicare advocacy and healthcare quality. So trying to make some of those complex policies more easy to understand and more relatable for occupational therapy practitioners. Yes, sometimes I do throw in some PT stuff, but when I was a clinician, I had a hard time finding resources that spoke to me as an OT. And as we know, what applies to one discipline may not be true for another discipline, especially where I was working was in home health, the traditional home health at the time. And so I wanted to try and provide a voice for the occupational therapy perspective and make sure that there's resources out there for our profession as well. So why I'm here, I have never run a private practice, but I do know a lot about policy. So I love policy, I love healthcare quality, and I really just want all clinicians to feel confident in their services. And I think the main way to do that, yes, you need evidence-based interventions, but you also need to understand how our healthcare system works because it is quite complex. And staying above all of that is important. And I also don't want to see any therapist on the Office of Inspector General's lawsuits. So that's my main goal, is to keep you all compliant, hopefully, and help give you information. In my time as an OT, I've worked in home health, so traditional home health before the implementation of PDGM, or the patient-driven groupings model. I worked in acute care for 2.5 years, where I also worked as part of the hospital outpatient clinic and doing some lymphedema treatment through that as well. I'm the former advocacy and policy coordinator for AOTA's Home and Community Health Special Interest Section. I'm the former director of practice for the Missouri Occupational Therapy Association, where I was in charge of their legislative agenda. And then I am the current American Occupational Therapy Political Action Committee ambassador for North Carolina. So that's me.
Now you know why these two are on my bus. I mean, thank goodness. And Sue is now coaching in our Therapy Business Builder program and helping with that on a daily basis. And Clarice has also come in, and we hope to keep her coming in at least every other month for keeping us all up in the compliance and policy issues to make sure everyone that's building and starting their business are knowing what they're doing. So, okay, let's get rolling. Objectives. So we're going to talk about why mobile hybrid therapy practices are popping up like crazy. How are they popping up and what you need to know? So obviously, I think we all know why mobile therapy practices are popping up. Why are they popping up? Put it in the chat section. Let's see what you guys have to say before I flip the screen. No overhead.
I'd question that one, but
Flexibility. Little overhead, yes. No, it's a big difference. Flexibility and scheduling, meaningful environment, huge community whose needs are not being met. See children and families in their natural environment. Get out of the powers that be in the corporate. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you guys know why we're here tonight. Current healthcare system. There's unethical stuff that goes on a regular basis. There's a lot of not client-centered therapy, especially for OTs. I get so tired of the horrible not client-centered therapy being provided. A lot of focus on quantity over quality, focus on productivity, scope of practice might be limited within current setting, treatments not always generalizable to the home setting. And as you guys said, more and more and more reasons for why people are popping up these types of practices. Also, as you guys mentioned, therapists are burnout. They want more flexibility. They want more clinical freedom. They're tired of being told what to do. They think they will make more money. We will talk about that because especially on social media, they make it seem like, you're going to be a millionaire and make whatever, but, we need to talk a little bit about that and draw people in. Social media. And I can't complain because obviously I'm here because of social media and pretty much every single one of you are here because of social media. But Facebook groups, Instagram, etc., are really promoting this. And once you search it, then you obviously get more and more ads and things like that on it. There's an increase in entrepreneurship in Facebook groups. There's an increase in programs helping therapists start practices. There's an increase in coaches helping therapists start practices. And just beware. I mean, like I said, I personally don't like privately coaching people. I love the team approach because not one person knows everything. And again, I wouldn't be here without Anthony and Sue and Clarice and Steve and Nancy, who's on, has helped. Rick, I utilize everything. So it scares me when people are like, I have a private practice, I can help you. Just beware, do your research and check people out. And then of course, therapists are talking about their own businesses as well. So that increases, sparks people's interest in getting this up and going. And it's just crazy to me because I've been wanting to start my practice, or I wanted to start my practice for years, and you just really didn't see it. You saw PTs out there doing it a lot. And now in the last few years, it's really kicked up for OT, which is exactly what we want. We want OTs starting their own businesses, but we want you guys to think about it and do it the right way. And same way for OTAs, PTAs, there's ways for you all to do it. Also, a good thing is the national associations are recognizing the future is focused on entrepreneurship. At the AOTA conference in New Orleans, our presidents talked about entrepreneurship being the way of our future. APTA has great resources, ASHA has stuff, and AOTA has added new modules. Private practice, I know I was in a webinar they did I don't know when it was, last summer, last fall. They've added 8 code standards. I love speaking at different schools around the US on the business entrepreneurship, and I'm guessing Clarice does a ton and touches on it, and I know Sue has. So it is becoming a bigger focus for the national associations as well. So quick review of why. And you guys all saw what I put on there, but how are people doing it? How are you guys seeing people start their own private practice? What are the different ways they're doing it? Anyone?
I'm going to say what I started doing, and someone said here, cash. I started thinking, okay, I'm just going to quit my teaching and I'm going to go out there and I'm going to start charging cash for it and set up my business that way.
Awesome. So yeah, SCORE and mentors are great. SCORE is great. I've utilized SCORE. However, they don't know anything about the healthcare world and compliance and the policies and regulations. Again, I was the self winging it, and that took me tons of time and so forth. So there is the self and winging it. There is tons of programs out there. There's more and more programs coming out all of the time, depending on if you want cash-based, private pay, stretching, neuro. I mean, there's all sorts of different types of programs out there. Do your research. When we started the Therapy Business Builder program, we pretty much helped all therapists start and build their practice. And I quickly realized that I did not feel comfortable with that, and that wasn't my love and that wasn't my passion. So we only help geriatric therapists that want to start and build their mobile hybrid practice working with older adults. Absolutely love that, because that's what I do every day. And I'm continuing to grow and learn. I mean, Sue, that's what she does. Steve, that's what he does. Everyone within our program is all doing the same thing. So we're able to build that network of support versus, like, say, our cash-based program is for people that want to do cash, and other people run that one. It's not what I do. So I've really done that. I'd say buyer beware on programs that say they can do it all, because the worlds are really different. So do your research. So private coaches, I've had private coaches. There are franchises out there. There are franchises that will help start and build a mobile hybrid practice for older adults. Again, they take a percentage of your money and so forth. So, just look at all of the different things out there and think about what you want. So if you don't care about your time, and you don't, really care about the stress aspect, wing it. I mean, but just know that you're going to devote a lot of time and energy and probably extra stress on it, and then just look at the different areas. So, and we'll talk about that more later. But the most important thing that we're here for tonight is to talk about what you need to know. Okay, so number one recommendation is do not wing it. Yes, I know some very, very successful therapists who have started their practices by winging it. Most all of those therapists told me they wish they didn't after the fact, but they did it and they're doing great. There's programs out there and there's books out there that will tell you how to establish your business, how to get your EIN, how to set up your bank account, how to get credentialed, how to set up your EMR. You guys, you can Google that. It's not rocket science when people are having a program to teach you that stuff, okay? You can Google that, watch YouTube, go to your state website. They'll guide you through most all of that.
I was just speaking with someone today who's not in our program and had just finally got their Medicare credentialing done. And she said to me, after everything, I wish I had just done and worked with you guys, because there were so many hassles and so much stress and so much extra time and so much extra money I had to devote because I was winging it.
Yeah, you don't realize till after the fact, unfortunately, but just if you do sign up with the program, and we're really niche limited. So all you pediatric therapists, you women's health, you cash-based people, just do your research and look for things that are more than this stuff, because go to SCORE, go to, I mean, there's lots of resources out there we can guide you to that will take you through this kind of stuff. I personally, like the people, when we help people with credentialing, that really helps. I mean, there's a lot of things I would do, but just don't get caught off guard because there's all this hype around things. I mean, been there, done that. Also be aware of social media. Let's see if this pulls up. Okay. So SCORE, what does SCORE stand for, you guys? I can't think off the top of my head.
I can't remember what it stands for, but it's basically a free community service that most states and cities have, where you get set up with a mentor who's been in business. They also have free resources and webinars on taxes and that sort of stuff. So they're really helpful for like the business side in terms of like taxes and making sure your bookkeeping's right and the difference of an LLC versus an S Corp, like all that kind of stuff. That's what SCORE is really helpful for. And they're completely free programs. So if you don't like it, then you just don't use it.
So
really nice.
They have retired executives that have specialized in certain things. So they're like Joy said, they're a part of the Small Business Administration. And so you can, like, I did someone who helped me with marketing, and I did someone that helped me. But again, they don't know our healthcare business well unless you get someone that has done that in there, and they don't know all of the other things that our obligations like Medicare and stuff. But they have been really helpful. So, I still say use them for certain things. Absolutely. But it is free, and it's a great connection in the community.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's a good connection. I would utilize it. Use all the resources you can when you're building a business. So beware of social media, you guys. We see literally multiple times a day questions posted on social media and they're answered wrong. Okay. Go as Nancy and Rick and Sue, Anthony, all those people say, go to the source, people. Don't trust social media. Again, I can say this because my ding-a-ling self just trusted people on social media, and that led me down the wrong path and made some really crappy mistakes. So yes, it's a good source to run some basic things off, but some things definitely you need to really know what you're doing versus relying on social media answering some of these questions. So sorry, that's your question. we have hundreds, probably to thousands of these. And yes, you can go back probably about 5 years ago and find lots of posts from Kara Welke out there gosh, that would be embarrassing. Don't do that, you guys. That would be really bad. I shouldn't give you an idea. So anyways, go to the source. You can find the source if you keep digging, that actually will give you the right information versus hoping the person on Facebook will. Oops, that went the wrong way for some reason. Okay, so what you need to know. And I'm going to go through these really quickly because we have some more important stuff, and then we want to make sure we have time for questions. So not all states are the same. When setting up your business in your state, it may not be like another state. This is something we see all the time on Facebook. People offering their advice about how they set up their business, licensure requirements, Board of Education requirements, insurance. Things aren't the same in every state. You have different requirements in your state for different things. So just because someone in North Dakota did it doesn't mean that's what it's like in North Carolina. Little things can turn into huge problems, and we've seen this on a regular basis with people coming to us to help after these problems already happened, or even when we try to help avoid these problems, they still kind of happen every once in a while. And this can be using a comma or missing a comma in something. The type of name you can create can actually cause problems down the line. What kind of email you establish can make life really difficult. Miscategorizing your business. There's lots of little things. Scams out there. We've had people that signed up for their EIN through a scam, and it's like, there's lots of things going on out there. So just know that little things can turn into huge problems and bite you in the butt in the long run. We see this all of the time. You cannot just forget you are a licensed therapist. PTs, OTs, PTAs, OTAs, SLPs. We are licensed therapists. We have rules and regulations you must follow. Clarice and Sue will get into this in a little bit more, I'm sure. But unfortunately, we can't just do what we want because we do have this license in place. Yes, I will give you examples of the email. What you need to know, you cannot just do whatever you want. So again, repeat, when you're a licensed therapist, you have rules and regulations. I'm an OT, I'm gonna open my own business. I'm not gonna call it OT because I don't wanna bill Medicare, I don't wanna charge cash. I'm just gonna do this, this, and this. I can't do that. There's state rules and regulations, there's national rules and regulations, there's insurance rules and regulations, there's different compliance standards to meet. People are forgetting that we're not just setting up a lemonade stand and we don't just need cups, lemonade, water, and a change box. Okay, there's a lot of things that go into place. Be aware of shiny object syndrome. Again, raise my hand here. I am the worst on this. And I actually just sent Sue another idea this week and she told me I have to wait. But you need to be willing to focus and take actions on the task at hand. Do not try to do it all. Trust me, please don't do this. Especially if you're on social media so much, you're going to see all of these people that are doing these things on YouTube and they're creating these online products and they're going to make millions with these not passive income things. If you want to do this, you need to focus on this and get it up and going. You can't be doing 100 million things. I can bring in my husband and he'll tell you about what it's like when you try to do more than one thing. Be aware of the certification need. You guys don't need certificates to start your business. You are skilled, licensed professionals. You have college degrees. I don't care if you're an OTA, PTA, OT, OTR, or OT, PT, SLP. You don't need a certificate or a certification to do what you necessarily want to do. There's some certifications that I absolutely love that I recommend, but you don't need that. So yeah, and I'll come back to your questions. It takes a lot of time and dedication. We hear a lot of people wanting to start their practice because they're overworked. They put too much time and energy into their work. They want more time freedom, so forth. When you're first starting up, you don't have much time freedom because you have to grind to get this to work. Except for we do have some people that seem to get up and going really great and not take quite as much time because they've built that solid connection in their community. But for the most part, you have to be willing to dedicate time and energy into your business. I don't know if it was Sue or Clarice who put this, but you definitely have more freedom in how you use your time, which can lead to more problems. But you are putting all of your time and energy into your business, not someone else's. Okay. I just had a colleague that experienced this. She put a ton of time and energy and sweat over the years into working for someone else to have that kind of swiped out underneath her. And I'm like, yeah, that's why you need to be doing this for yourself, not someone else. So you're in control. not all businesses are equal. And this is the big reason why I don't coach everyone, and why our therapy business builder program is specifically focused on mobile hybrid practices for older adults, because not all businesses are equal. And I couldn't stand the fact that I, am not good in these other areas. So just think about this and find people that are doing this to build, your network. Just because a pediatric clinic base is going to be different than the home base. A women's health cash is completely different than a hybrid practice for older adults. Hand therapy versus lymphedema. I mean, a lot of things do apply, but yet there's a lot of different things that come into play.
Also, I think part of that is to realize that your business idea and model will potentially evolve over time as you get in there and you start to do it as well.
Right. Yeah, for sure. My screen went black. There it is. Oh, a second. Oop. Sue, Clarice, do you want to answer some of those questions? Maybe like, can you speak to OTs calling their services coaching and the pros and cons of that? Why I fixed my screen?
Yeah, so I've definitely seen it happening. A lot of people try and call themselves a coach or something else in order to get out of legally billing. There's a couple of issues. One, just because you call yourself something different doesn't mean that you aren't licensed and not liable to those laws. And two, it can be charged as fraud because you're purposefully misleading people in order to try and get money out of them. So you need to reveal what you are, especially now there's different nuances. Now, if what you're doing is truly coaching, call yourself a coach. But in my mind, when it comes down to, I always, I was raised by a lawyer. So a lot of times I think about things as if I were going to be in a courtroom. If someone sat you in front of a lawyer, if someone sat you in front of a judge and they asked you, can you explain why what you're doing is coaching and why it's not OT or why it's not PT, then fine. If you have a definitive definition as to why what you're doing isn't using your occupational training, isn't using your OT license, great. That's your own risk to take on. But if you can't, because oftentimes, let's be honest, it's hard to turn off that clinician brain. We have that training, we have that skill. It's not something that I can be like, okay, in this scenario, I'm an OT, and in this scenario, I'm not. You need to have that kind of formalized explanation as to why what you're doing doesn't count as being an OT. So you can't call yourself a coach or say, well, I'm just going to say this is a wellness service because I don't want to bill Medicare. That can lead you in a lot of trouble on numerous different platforms. So not only with Medicare, but also with, how you're representing yourself and licensure laws and all sorts of different things. So whether or not there's a pros and cons, it really just depends on the type of service that you're doing, what it is that you're doing. Is it a billable service? All those different things depends on what you want to call yourself. I don't even think sometimes of what we do as OTs, it's not always really coaching. There's certain definitions for coaching. There's kind of their own certifications and their own way of managing what a coach is and isn't. So it just depends on how you set up your company and what also to your risk tolerance.
Yeah, and I think, Clarice, that's a good point, because a lot of people don't know the definitions of their profession in their State Practice Act and what's included and incorporated in that, and that's what you're going to be held to. And so you really need to know that very clearly, and then you need to look at what's covered, we're going to say Medicare, the reasonable, skilled, medically necessary. And then your policies and procedures need to be in place so that that decision you make is consistent and you can justify that each time. It's not just, oh, okay, well, this person's, I built enough, I'm coming up to the, what's the name? So I need to look at that, and then, yeah, Kara, I can pull it up. And so that you want to be able to have that clear procedure in place. so that the decision you're making is consistent each time, because otherwise there's so many subconscious factors that influence us when we try to make that decision about whether it's wellness, whether it's maintenance, whether it's skilled, whether it's not skilled.
In regards to the email, I mean, it's little things. You guys, my email is kara@hometherapysolutionsnd.com. Really? I mean, that's the longest email ever, and it's a nightmare for my clientele to write down. But also we have people that set up email wrong. Like for instance, they set it up like hometherapysolutions@gmail.com versus creating a professional email. And they do it and then they come to us, and then we're working on changing that. Well, they already have their email list. They already have everything out there with their email and so forth. And then we have to change it. And it's kind of a pain in the butt. I actually did that with Next Level OT. My original email was nextlevelot@gmail.com because again, I didn't know what I was doing. And it was a real pain in the butt to change it. So
You also want to be mindful too, if you are communicating with clients, you may be liable for HIPAA compliance with your emails as well. So you want to make sure that whatever email provider you're choosing or how your website is set up, that's all going to be compliant.
and
All right, are you guys able to see the slides again, by the way?
Yep, thank you. And if you have hometherapysolutions@gmail.com, you can pretty much guarantee that you are not set up appropriately for your email. So yeah.
And if you get that BBA in place.
Yes. Okay. Now more things. This is what got Sue and I when we first started. 100% cash-based practice may not be an option. That's why one of the reasons when I started my practice, I saw all the cool PTs that are cash-based, and I'm like, well, that's what I'm going to do. And up and going until I realized that we can't opt out of Medicare, and you can't just give an ABN or I have friends and colleagues, well, they had their attorney make this special piece of paper that they have their client sign. And so they're able to do cash. So the mandatory claim submission requirement, not everyone realizes what the mandatory claim submission process is, and there's violations of these that, up to $2,000 for each violation or Medicare program exclusion. And I think most of you in our world know this. I know a few of you on here are new to me, but we preached this so much over the last couple of years that I'm pretty sure everyone has this down pat. What you see and read on social media may not be correct. Always go to the source. Holy cow, the independent contractor versus employees situation. Again, go to IRS website, pull up their information on independent contractor versus employees, read through it.
And your state.
Yes, and your state, it's just because other people are doing it doesn't mean it's right. I didn't take the time to pull up some different lawsuits that have happened on this, but if you Google, you're going to find quite a few on people being categorized as an independent contractor versus an employee because the business is trying to save money. They don't want to pay taxes and all that kind of stuff. So
and being through an audit, and it's not a pleasant experience. But we were fine because we had everything set up correctly, but it's something you really need to be aware of if you're looking at hiring somebody, and that you even use the terms correctly.
And if you have your own 1099 as an independent contractor, make sure you're paying your taxes correctly as well, because you usually have to make quarterly payments versus paying just at the end of the year. So you want to make sure that if you have your own 1099 contracts with whomever it may be, that you have your stuff set up correctly as well.
Yeah. Lots of things to think about with independent contractors and employees, and huge discussions on if OTAs and PTAs can be independent contractors. My attorneys are legal experts that I've met with in our state. OTAs and PTAs cannot be independent contractors for my home therapy solutions business if they're providing treatment and working as an OTA, because they need that supervision. They can't just be independent on their own. They need guidance, support, and there's a whole discussion on that. Again, lots of misleading out there on the cash-based versus insurance.
When we're talking about cash-based versus insurance, I'm just going to go back to a question, Cara, that came up.
Yep.
It says, what do you mean by opting out of Medicare? A lot of people think that they can opt out of Medicare because some physicians can, some other practitioners can, but therapists cannot. What that means is you go through a special procedure with Medicare, and there's a set procedure where you can bill Medicare clients for your services without billing Medicare, and that's called opting out. And it's a special procedure that has to be done and in place, and with all these agreements, and Nancy can fill you in on the details, but there's a whole list of them. I post it on the video when people ask. But one of the things is it doesn't apply to us as therapists. We don't have that option. We can't opt out, so we must bill for skilled, medically necessary, reasonable covered services. And then there's a mandatory claim submission, which says not only that, we have to submit the bill to Medicare. So, there's those components that you need to do. I hope that answers your question.
And it has to do with how we're defined in the Social Security Act. So in order to change it, it would take an act of Congress, meaning we'd have to pass legislation. I know the big agencies like AOTA, APTA, they're looking into what would be the potential ramifications of changing it, because it would essentially mean reclassifying us as physicians. And so what would that mean for our practice? How much would it cost? Those sorts of things. So it's something they're looking into. You can be participating or non-participating, but non-participating does not mean you've opted out and can therefore bill cash for covered services. So that's what makes us a bit different from physicians. And I've got an article on my website as well, where I've kind of linked to some of the original sources where it says that we can't opt out according to CMS.
Yeah, and there's many of those available. And then the other part of that, participating and non-participating, still means you're credentialed with Medicare, and you still have to do the billing. And so people use that and think, oh, I've got all these things. Well, I'm not participating. Well, no, you need to know the language and the terms and read up on that to be really careful. And Clarice, you can answer that one in the question. Yeah.
The other big topic, and I think we get into this a little bit more, is creating a practice and forgetting you are a licensed therapist. I mean, there have been almost down out dog fights on some therapy groups of people arguing about this. And I guess, for me, I want to make sure I'm doing things right and so forth. And I'm a therapist. I'm being proud of being an occupational therapist. But there's a lot of people out there that are, trying to, I see some OTAs doing it and PTAs maybe more than OTs and PTs, but that's just because of people who come to me that, they're going to start this business and it really looks like an occupational therapy business, but they're not going to call it occupational therapy because they're an OTA and they don't have an OTR and so forth. So, just be careful. EMR recommendations. My biggest pet peeve is when someone asks for an EMR recommendations and people just tell them an EMR, but they don't even know what type of practice they have. I mean, obviously I'm affiliated with Hello Note. I'm not part of Hello Note, but when I started my practice, I checked out all the EMRs. I did my research. Steve was the one that was on the call with me. He's the one that helped me, and it's just worked. And it fits my practice well, but I don't recommend it to everyone. I mean, if you're doing a practice like mine, I recommend it because we utilize it on a daily basis. My staff love it. And it works well, but it might not work well for a cash-based practice solely or for a pediatric practice. So again, do your research on everything. out there. Time, financial, and clinical freedom. Top 3 things that people want. They want time freedom, financial freedom, and clinical freedom. I'd say that clinical freedom comes pretty much immediately, at least I would like to think that. The time and financial freedom is going to take some time. And it depends on your business and how you set things up. You guys were talking about Medicare. It's a great practice to, if just Kara wants to see clients and bill Medicare, and I can write out the numbers for you guys in the question and show you how much you can make good money. But once you start adding on employees and independent contractors and so forth and build, you have lots of expenses. So you do need to think about what you're doing as you get going. And sometimes you may not make more than you did as an employee. We have some therapists coming to us telling us what they make, and we're like, we can't guarantee you for the first so long you're not gonna make more than you are now. So just some things to think about. It's not always as glossy as you hear out there. Professional liability insurance. So this came up recently. And OTA is trying to start her own business. And the liability insurance says she needs to go by her license. She doesn't want to call what she does OT in order to avoid supervision requirements. But they won't license her because she needs to go by an OTA and so forth. So again, you have to get liability insurance, or you need some things in place, and it's not always as easy to get around with this kind of stuff. I like Clarice said, calling yourself a coach, mentor, or consultant does not preclude you from following licensure laws. And like she said before, if you're sued, can you say why what you're doing isn't OT? And you still need liability insurance if you are not seeing patients and are doing consulting.
That's my own personal side note.
Yep.
Because people can sue you for anything that they want to. And so even if you may be in the right, you still have all the costs associated with any kind of lawsuit or legal claim. And so you want that liability insurance. I mean, I recommend liability insurance, even if you are employed full-time by someone else, because their lawyers are supposed to represent them, not you, versus if you have liability insurance, you have your own lawyer.
Right.
And I've always had mine even as a professor.
Because it's not that expensive, depending on what kind of liability insurance you need and what kind of coverage, but liability insurance is not always that expensive, and it's a lot cheaper than getting sued.
Right. Yeah,
Right.
and I've definitely been in a situation where the skilled nursing facility and the company that was managing it was facing a lawsuit. And definitely they were looking to blame some of the employees for what was happening versus what was happening with management. And so being able to say that I had my own coverage was something that had them step back from focusing on me with that as well. So
yeah, I can talk. Sorry, go ahead, Kara.
No, I was just going to say, just to point out, like sometimes trying to make it seem like we're not OTs, PTs, OTAs, PTAs, is it really worth all that hassle? Because you have to think of your licensure, you have to think about liability insurance, there's a lot of things to think about. So, okay, Clarice, take it.
Yeah, so I put together this slide. So there's a lot of laws that you need to be aware of, and this is primarily applicable to individuals working with adults who may be beneficiaries of Medicare. So a lot of times it's important to remember intent is not considered when they prosecute federal law or mostly any law. So they don't consider like saying, I didn't know that was a thing. They don't really care. There's common, so I see a lot of common OIG investigations. If you are interested in this sort of thing, I highly recommend subscribing to their emails. They send out pretty much daily emails that are packed full of lawsuits for healthcare professionals. And so, not all of them apply to something that we might be doing, but they're interesting to read and see what people are responsible for. So the biggest one I see, especially for therapists, is false claims. And this doesn't necessarily mean that you're billing for services that didn't apply. This means that you could be billing for a service that you think is covered, but Medicare clearly says isn't. So that would be billing for services that aren't reasonable, aren't necessary, aren't skilled, those sorts of things. So it's not just about billing claims that you know aren't covered, but falsely submitting claims that don't meet the coverage criteria, or billing for services that don't occur. That's a pretty simple one. Don't do that. Supervision issues, billing for services provided by a PTA or OTA without appropriate supervision being provided. So that's something that recently a radiation group got in trouble for. Something, they had techs who were providing these services without the appropriate supervision, billing for those services. That would also be considered a false claim. So under Medicare Part B, if you're billing that, then you need to be providing direct supervision of an OTA and PTA, which is why it makes it difficult for OTAs and PTAs to enter into mobile outpatient clinics, because they aren't able to receive that kind of direct supervision. So it's not that OTAs and PTAs can't, it's just as a little bit difficult if you're going to see Medicare patients. Now there is some flexibilities under the new public health emergency, but we don't know when that'll end. Now, in terms of other things that I see a lot of clinicians get in trouble for, it's kickbacks. So providing things like free evaluations. If your patient is a Medicare beneficiary, you cannot provide free covered services. That is considered a kickback because it's seen as a way to incentivize them to receive more services than what may be necessary. So you have to charge your co-insurances, you have to charge for your services. Also be considerate about contracting with doctors, providers, contractors, where there's some sort of monetary exchange in return for referrals. Don't show up to a doctor's office with a fruit basket, like I heard promoted on some podcasts recently. They said, oh, every time the doctor's birthday, I go in with a fruit basket to tell them about my service. That could be considered potentially a kickback because you are providing them some sort of incentive in order to send you referrals. So you want to be very careful with those kinds of arrangements, or like someone saying, hey, if you refer them for, a ramp, then we'll send you $300. That's a kickback. So you want to be very careful. And this applies definitely to Medicare, but there's also a lot of state laws about kickbacks. And so it may not be applying just only to Medicare beneficiaries. It may apply to other patients as well. So something to be aware of. I saw a question about why do they make it so vague of what's covered and what isn't? It's so that you have the ability to be interpretive with that. So you wouldn't want Medicare telling you that this service is always covered, because then it makes it very black and white as to what we can and can't do. Instead, it really relies on that clinical judgment, because something that may be covered for one patient may not be a covered service for another. I may be doing the same intervention for two different patients, but it depends on whether or not it meets that coverage criteria of what's reasonable, what's necessary, and what's skilled. So it's really important to familiarize with what Medicare does and doesn't cover, because there is a certain amount of guessing, and that's just going to be inherent no matter where you work as to whether or not what you are doing is really meeting that coverage criteria. Someone asked what a mobile hybrid practice is. It's basically where you're going and providing outpatient care.
Well,
not in a facility.
Hybrid is where you're doing cash-based and insurance.
Oh, and yeah.
Practice. But I just want to go back to that, because Medicaid often has the same, which is what you're talking about with state. It often has some of the same things because it's still under some of those CMS rules. And then also this comes in a lot with ethics, and a lot of people don't read the AOTA ethics or the APTA, though I find APTA is vaguer than AOTA in terms of selling products. But there's a lot of stuff about that that gets missed as well in terms of providing kickbacks and getting paid kickbacks from selling products and all of those kinds of things. And this comes in with the contractors and some of those pieces. So again, being careful in that area with what you do. And then there's also a little bit about small amount not considered to impact. So, thinking about what is the limit there, but it's better to stay out of that field than trying to define where where it stops, right?
I've generally heard that like under $5 could be something that wouldn't be considered influential. So like if you gave someone a pen, most likely you're not going to be held responsible for some sort of kickback, because me receiving a pen would not necessarily incentivize me to make a referral. So, but again, it's all about that risk balance and kind of going back and looking at what the law says.
And I think my state, when I was audited, DSHS in the state said under $25 for the whole year. And so, you know, looking at all of that piece, but again, it's like, it's a slippery slope where you're going with it.
And the other, sorry, go ahead, Kara.
Well, I was just going to say, with this kickbacks and the providing free evaluations, like how many of you guys have seen ads where they're providing free evaluations? So we had a client tell us recently, she's like, well, I get these emails from this place and they're having these free evaluations, and I go in and I get this free evaluation. Then all of a sudden I'm scheduled for therapy and billed for therapy. So kind of be on the lookout for that. The other thing is, I feel like home mods, we see this stuff going on a ton with the home mod stuff, with the free home assessments, and then, you know, the certain types of equipment and so forth. So really look into that. And then really quick, students has been another issue under the supervision. You have to know if you have students, what's going on. So we've recently had some clients that have, or some people in our world that have taken students with Medicare Part B. You know, Medicare Part B, students cannot treat clients on their own by themselves. A therapist can't be seeing someone and the students. I mean, there's rules and so forth. We've had someone submit claims to Medicare that were done by a student, and then they put a co-treat. I mean, there's lots of things that can go awry. So you really need to know what you're doing here when it gets in. So Clarice, go ahead to what you were saying.
I was just going to say, I also see a lot of things of, I got an LLC, so therefore I'm good. It's up to you and discussion with your tax agent and laws as to how you decide to classify your business. Like me personally, I'm a sole proprietor. I don't have an LLC because it doesn't make sense for my type of business. But an LLC does not mean that you're good to go. It still means that you are liable for any of your own errors. So if you commit errors that would violate these laws, it doesn't mean that your house is fine, everything else is fine. You can still be legally liable to these issues, even if you have an LLC, even your personal asset. So just again, something to be aware of, that an LLC isn't a 100% good to go coverage.
I'm just going to read a question that I answered in the question thing, just because I think it's something that other people have answers to. So regarding opting out of Medicare, for example, would it be possible if the patient had Medicare, is requiring unskilled OT, just needing someone to do a home exercise program with them because they don't trust the caregiver or the family, specifically asked to opt out of Medicare and pay privately and are fully aware of the costs? Would it be okay for them to opt out of Medicare and sign an ABN? So I want you to be aware of your wording here. This is not opting out of Medicare. If you read the maintenance criteria and you read the skilled criteria, this is not a skilled therapy service. So it's a non-covered service, right? Now, upgrading the program once a month or doing a follow-up may be a skilled service, but providing it just because they don't trust the caregiver, or because there's no one available to do it, or because the client can't remember. If you read the criteria in CMS Chapter 15, Section 220, I think it's 2D or something in that area there that's on maintenance therapy, you'll find it clearly outlines those circumstances where it's not covered. The key is you need to have the policies and procedures in place that outline how you make that decision, and that you do it consistently, and then understanding when you need to apply an ABN. And there's clear guidelines on using the ABN accurately as well. I think that's all I needed to say on that. But
awesome. training requirements. People, I know we're running out of time already, but people don't realize that there are certain requirements that you need. There's certain requirements for staff training and compliance. You know, I swear so many people don't have a policy and procedure manual. You know, ours in our program, you know, we went through an attorney to help us create. I mean, we spent over $12,000, and that was just one time, not the rechecks and things like that. Not saying you need to do that, but you know, people have this resource out there. Nancy Beckley's on here. She has so much compliance stuff to check out. We have policy and procedure manual in our practice for therapists doing what we're doing. So look into this stuff more. But I mean, even specific insurances require certain trainings to be done. Medicare has guidance, Medicaid. Just keep looking and do your research. Losing money. If you don't know what you're doing, it can cost a lot. It can cost you so much more. So, you know, so many people that are trying to do it on their own. I wish we could do a research study on this, but I could pretty much guarantee you that they end up losing more money than they actually save with the different mistakes and errors that go on. I mean, you know, all of these things we see on a regular basis. And there are things that have happened to us in our business. Finding information. So Clarice and Sue, I mean, you guys put this together. So you guys can go ahead and go over this.
So pretty much just go to those resources. CMS Chapter 15 is the benefit policy manual that really clearly lays out coverage. It's not the only thing that you need to read, but it's definitely something that's worth pretty thoroughly reading it through. You also need to be aware if you are subjected to MIPS. Now, if you're a private practice clinician and you're solo, more likely than not, you aren't going to have to be reporting to MIPS, because I think it's something like $90,000 of Medicare dollars a year, which if you're doing that by yourself, kudos. But it's something to be aware of, especially as your practice grows, or if you're 1099 consulting for someone, be aware of whether or not you may be required to report to MIPS, which is their basically a value system for outpatient. Chapter 5 is another claim to get familiar with. That's their claims processing manual. So that provides a lot of resources. Those are CMS documents. You can Google them by just doing CMS Chapter 15 benefit policy manual. They're completely free. You also want to check out the CMS page on an ABN. There's a lot of misinformation about when and how to appropriately utilize an ABN. Like even a couple of weeks ago, I went to go see my eye doctor. I don't have vision insurance, so they handed me an ABN and they highlighted which one they wanted me to sign. That is not legal technically. You are not allowed to provide influence. So, and also I don't know why they necessarily issued me an ABN. I'm not a Medicare patient. So it's just something to be aware of. That it is a legal document when you're utilizing an ABN. So you want to be pretty clear on how and when to use it. And then my fun fact of the day was that what applies to Medicare may not necessarily apply to Medicare Advantage. These are two separate programs while connected. So always check Medicare Advantage policies as well. So that's another key distinction. There's a difference between Medicare Part A and Part B versus Medicare Advantage or Medicare Part C.
And this makes me think, you know, some insurances won't reimburse you for over 4 units. Some reinsurance won't reimburse you for some CPT codes. I mean, there's lots of things that you guys need to know, and there's help for you. You can get this help. We're just trying to help you be aware of this. So.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of things related to that, but the key is to understand that you need to do that. I think one of the big things that keeps coming up is that mobile outpatient occurring in the home is not home health. We're not subjected to the same rules. It's very different rules, which apply to a coder as well. And the 2 billing codes that are covered for therapists in private practice are home and office, your clinic. And so that's kind of the 2 that you need to look at that are covered services. So if you're taking your client to the shopping center to work on something, that is not a covered service, as we have, some of us learned the hard way. So I'm just thinking about those things. So knowing those rules, looking at those supplies, you can't bill a fee because you're going to their home, because that's considered part of your overhead. So that is versus renting, the room. So for Medicare clients, that's not a piece. And I think, Nancy, we've had that discussion before and looked at the piece with that. Okay, so technically, Clarice replied to that, doesn't need a referral. And while it doesn't need a referral, I always give the physician's office a heads up and do the polite thing, because surprising them out of the blue for a plan of care that you expect them to sign immediately and return to you is not necessarily the best way to develop a relationship.
Yeah.
And we've had therapists burnt on this, you guys. We've had therapists that have just gone and seen clients without getting a referral, and the physician will not sign off on their plan of care.
You also want to be careful of direct access issues. That's another one where you have to pay attention to your Practice Act as well.
Yep.
Yeah, so and it's not just, you've got a couple of sets of rules. You've got your State Practice Act, plus then you have the payer rules. So you've got to look at all of those combined together when you're doing this.
So these are just some of our fast facts. We kind of covered most of these. I see a lot of confusion between home health and mobile outpatient. I try and always make sure I'm sticking to CMS language, whereas in that home health indicates a home health agency, which means you're billing Part A. That would include that OASIS piece. That's a very different type of setup, documentation requirements. You usually have to employ a nurse, a PT. It's extremely different from what most of you all here are interested in learning about, which would be that mobile outpatient clinic, or you're providing outpatient services in someone's individual home, in which case you would be billing Medicare Part B and not Medicare Part A. So it's important to understand that difference. And also I've seen issues arise with states, like be careful putting home health in your business name, because some states may have certain laws about whether or not you can call yourself a home health company if you are not a home health agency. So that's another one to just kind of be aware of and do that research in naming your business, so you don't end up accidentally classifying yourself wrong.
Even my name has gotten me in arguments with insurance companies, because they're like, well, your name is Home Therapy Solutions. And I'm like, but I'm not home health. Oh, so yes.
Other fast facts: the KX modifier does not equal a cap. So important to be aware of that in that process. There is no hard therapy cap anymore under Medicare Part B. Utilizing the KX modifier does not mean that you don't have to document medical necessity in every single note. It's just saying that you are double checking the box that you extra assured that what you're doing is medically necessary. I'll let Sue, you talk about the estimating income, because I did not put that in there.
It didn't let me unmute. Sorry, that was after you went to bed last night or whatever it was. So Medicare does publish their fee schedules publicly, right? And it varies by location. So there's different loading factors. For some locations, the overhead's more expensive than others. But there are going to be things that alter that. And so there's the multiple procedure payment reduction that impacts your overall reimbursement. Then there's NCI edits, which mean you need to look at how you're pairing things together. And then there's qualified Medicare beneficiaries, which are clients that are both Medicare as primary and then Medicaid as secondary. And what that means is, once the reductions have been put in place, and the Medicare will reimburse 80% then of the overall allowable recoverable fee. And then generally the client is responsible for 20%. It may then be covered by a supplement if they have a supplemental insurance. But if they have Medicaid as the supplement, then that removes the 20%. You can't charge them for that. Medicaid says well, Medicare paid you more than we would have, right? And so we're not paying you anything else. So if you see QMB clients, you're going to just get that 80%. You can't charge the client for the other 20%. And I think you had it back earlier, Clarice, that I don't know if we've covered it, but here we put, you are responsible for attempting for charging your client that 20% under Medicare. That's an obligation that you must, except for a QMB client. And you have to make attempts to collect it. That's part of your agreement with them. And cannot bill Part B. We've talked about that with home health. Understanding maintenance therapy, again, read the section in CMS Manual, Chapter 15 to 20, Section D, that I can't remember which point it is, but it will describe what maintenance therapy is covered and gives you pretty clear guidelines and examples that you can use there to look at what is covered and what's not covered.
And also remember that maintenance and also regular therapy is not determined by diagnosis. So there's no such thing as Medicare covers therapy for Parkinson's. That's not a thing. It's nowhere. It specifically says in there that an individual's diagnosis does not automatically qualify someone for therapy services. That's in Chapter 15.
And just because they don't have a caregiver to help them with their program, or just because they have a cognitive deficit. So lots to think about.
That's why your private pay options come in, right?
Okay.
Right, back to you.
So, and I mean, literally, I could have kept going with more and more screens. And I love that Clarice put this in there. She's like, we have to have something positive. You guys, I don't want to scare you from having a private practice. But I mean, I don't know if Nancy's still on here, but Nancy scares me whenever I see her post, because she always is making me thinking that what I have and do and checking my checks and balances. We're running a healthcare business. We have to do things correct. But it can be awesome. I mean, I absolutely love having a business. It's a ton of work. But nothing beats, helping our clients get the services that they truly deserve and need. So you're controlling the quality, you're controlling the productivity, you're controlling your time off, opportunity to try innovative care. You're able to practice your full scope. The rewards from the clients are just so much more meaningful. We've been, again, interviewing, meeting with therapists, and I don't know what's going on, but therapists right now are not liking where they're at, because like I've had the worst time trying to find PTs, and we've had several apply for our PT job, and they all talk about this. They're so tired of having to focus on quantity, productivity, being told what to do, what not to do, and so forth. So it is great. You just need to do the right thing when you're doing it. So recommendations, my recommendation is you got to put the right people on your bus. When I was in my OTD program, our director and our teacher always talked about putting the right people on your bus. And then throughout my coaching, they've always stressed your network equals your net worth. So again, I wouldn't be where I was without for my coaches and people that I can ask questions to. We can bounce things off on a daily basis. Join a mastermind or start your own. Set up your books the right way before taxes are due in April. Yes.
I learned that the hard way.
Financial stuff. Oh, I love this. This is Clarice. Be like a hedgehog and not an octopus. Focus on what's important.
Yeah, this is one that I heard in I started a mastermind with my own friends who are also OT entrepreneurs who do similar businesses to mine to bounce ideas off of. But we remind each other that like an octopus, you're reaching out for all these different things. And that's how a lot of clinicians are, especially in the start of their business. And I have to admit, that's how I've been as well, where you're like, you just say yes, 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 because you're trying to make it, you're trying to make money, you're trying to figure out what that niche is. And so you say yes to doing everything. And so that's like being an octopus versus being a hedgehog. Hedgehogs, ball up and they roll and they go one direction. And so that's an idea of learning when to say, no, that's not what I'm going to do. Like learning that some patients may not be appropriate for your business. And that's okay, that you don't have to take every referral. Or if someone says, can you do this program for me? Or can you, do X, Y, or Z? It's okay to say, no, that's not going to fit within my niche, because we can't do everything. And you end up sometimes losing a lot of money by trying to be an octopus and not being a hedgehog. So that's one of my fun entrepreneurisms, as well as not comparing your step 1 to someone else's 100. I think we are all victims of that in terms of, especially when I started out, I'm like, well, how do these people have this many followers, or how do they have this many emails? And I don't have that. You're kind of trying to compare you who've been doing this for a couple of months to someone who's been doing it for 10, 15 years. So I constantly, have to remind myself that I'm on this stage and this is my own journey, and it may not be as fast as someone else's, or it may not be as slow as someone else's. So always to keep in mind that it's your own journey and you don't have to be comparing yourself to someone else.
And sometimes what you see is not necessarily the case either. So, think about that out there. And yeah, like Clarice said, and don't forget to charge for your services. A business that doesn't make money is a hobby, and in this situation can be an expensive one. And Sue and I actually were talking about this today, because we've been working with someone, and we're like, are you going to do a business or a very expensive hobby? So lots of things to think about. Okay, so we're going to get to all of your questions that we didn't answer. I'm not a huge pushy, you need to do our program, because to be honest, I only want people that want to be in our program, and our program's not for everyone. If you guys want to do a mobile hybrid geriatric therapy practice, obviously I'm biased, because you're not going to find, better mentors and people in our community than Sue and Clarice and Anthony and Steve. Rick's come in. Nancy, I was just thinking, I need to have you in if you can take some days off of retirement. Nancy is actually.
She's also retired.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. If she could take some time off of retirement to come in sometime, but
she's managing the retirement a little more successfully than me, but not necessarily, Nancy. I see you still posting stuff.
Yeah. But with just a little bit about our therapy business builder program, we've been doing this since it's when everything October 2019. And we've made tons of changes over the time, because again, when you're starting something new, we've grown, adapt, and changed. We haven't really changed much since the last year, because in April of last year, we made the best decisions possible. And that was to divide our program into 2 different levels, level 1 and level 2. Level 1 is for the people that are literally just getting started. Level 2 is for those people that already have a business, but they're just not getting where they need to be. So I know some of you had talked about that. We do OTs, PTs, we have OTAs that have set up successful businesses, PTAs that have set up successful businesses. We really try to keep it as cost effective as possible. And literally just trying to cover the time and to pay for all the different people that we asked to come in. Recently, like I said, Rick Wanda was in, did an amazing training on lymphedema. Alex Ingar was in on finances this last week. Clarice was in May, and hopefully I need to talk to you about coming back in now in July or August. We have, a big training tomorrow. And then that's kind of minor, because really the community and being in a group of therapists all doing the same thing, I feel that's the most beneficial part about it all. We do have a cash-based therapy business builder program that Alicia Colmar and Aaron Lingberg do, and that's, you know, more for the pediatrics and women's health clients, private practice, things that aren't dealing with older adults. Sue has created the amazing home accessibility and safety therapist certification, and she can talk a little bit more about that. And then again, Amplify OT is Clarice is program and business, and you need to check out that. Make sure you guys are all in Next Level Occupational Therapy Facebook group, because that's where we'll post a bunch of stuff. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll put things on there. I will tell you that our podcast, you know, I haven't done very many podcasts for a long time. Again, octopus, hands in way too many things, and I had to cut those legs off. But I do hope to get back to that once I get full staffed here. And then there's other resources too. I mean, I've sent people to other coaching programs, other coaches, several times, because we don't do it all. And there's a lot of other people out there that do great things. So think about that. So dang it. We were really trying hard for an hour. I knew we couldn't do it, but an hour and a half is pretty good. And depending on how much questions you guys want, we might be here a little bit longer. So 80 questions that we missed that you guys still need help for. I don't know if I mentioned this, but yes, we help PTs and PTAs. Some of the PTs are commented above in there. We have quite a few people in our programs that are in here. So
I always say to go back to the source, even everything that we've told you tonight, it's really important to always read the source, because policy is written inherently gray. There are multiple ways occasionally to interpret policies. And so it's always really important to go to a source. I never trust a resource that doesn't cite where it found information. And so that's where, you know, I trust those resources that say, hey, because ultimately at the end of the day, a lot of what you're reading are interpretations. So it's always good to go back and then also read what the policy says itself. And that helps you get more used to reading policies and understanding what's talking to you, what's not talking to you. Because there are times where something may say physicians, but it also still includes therapy services. We didn't talk about the No Surprises Act. That's another one that's important to look up, especially if you're doing out-of-network billing or cash-based billing. This is a national law that recently passed at the end of December. So importance of providing a good faith estimate. So check that one out. We also didn't talk about the OTA payment differential. That's another thing that's important to keep in mind, especially if you plan on hiring OTAs or PTAs. It's a 15% reduction in what Medicare pays through Medicare Part B for services provided by OTAs and PTAs that has very specific guidelines. So another thing to look into. Doesn't mean that it's not beneficial and helpful to have OTAs and PTAs in a clinic. It's just something you have to be mindful of, using appropriate utilization of modifiers and those sorts of things. So it's not impossible, but it's just good to make sure you're getting that right information.
Also, just to mention, Nancy still has a ton of resources up on her website. Rick Owanda does a lot of different things as well. Clarice, she has a new pro course coming out. She does tons of webinars. You know, we have policies and procedures, and then our, you know, therapy business builder programs to help different things. A geriatric summit we did last spring that we'll do another one. So just kind of, if you're in the Next Level Facebook group, you'll keep up with, you know, most everything we recommend.
And I did post Nancy's website. Nancy, you can tell us if anything's changed, but people are wondering, can they still access stuff on there? What else?
Luna, you guys might see Luna pop up out there. They're doing mobile hybrid therapy, but you work for them. You don't have your own business. And they only have PTs right now. They're not everywhere. Jolanda, yes, we do. In fact, you can't, to be in our level 2 program, you need to have your policies and procedures in place. In level 1 program, our level 1 program is designed so that you have everything in place so you can go out and see clients, which includes you need to have your policies and procedures in place. Oh, yeah. So I have met with Luna and talked to them. Yes, they do hope to do OT eventually. It just depends on what you want to do. Like, I give this example all the time. My husband would never in a million years want to start a business and do what I'm doing. In fact, there was 3 of them that thought about going out and starting his business, and he's just like, that's not me. I mean, really, he has the ideal job. He goes to work, sees his clients, he gets paid well, he goes home, he doesn't have to deal all the crap out there, you know, so it just, and he doesn't have to deal with like the productivity stuff. I mean, he still kind of runs his own thing. So it really depends on what you want. Some people like to work for someone else. They like having that security. But it's not always really security. And if you go back to my story of a previous job, you'll find out that you're not necessarily secure when you think you are. Let's see. Other questions that we missed. I'm currently credentialed with Medicare and Blue Cross Blue Shield Texas, and I'm in the process of adding other insurances. Okay, so first of all, it really depends what type of business you have, what your goals, where you want to be. Like when I first started, I was credentialed with Medicare and that's it. I really try to get our Therapy Business Builder members to start with Medicare because you need to figure out and know the fee schedules and the requirements and so forth about these other insurance companies. And oftentimes there's many of them you can do out of network with that it's really good. I do my own credentialing and we teach our therapists to do their own credentialing. And that's one mistake when we first started, we did a total for you program where we did everything for people, which it's nice, but then you don't learn. And we want people to learn so that they're not reliant on us in the future and they can then credential their own staff and so forth. Something to think about there.
Karen asked about home assessments to help aging in place people stay in their home. I'm considering purchasing your policies and procedure packet, but I'm not sure it's the right fit. So in the HASP program, we then add in the options, how to decide using the criteria from the AOTA attorneys, which were based on all the stuff that I presented to AOTA, which is why they went and hired an attorney for 6 months to try and figure this out because of a presentation that I did and created the furor about this.
I remember that.
Yes, it was great. I loved it. So one of the things is, yes, we do use those policies and procedures because some of those assessments must be billed under Medicare and meet the criteria. And so you need to have that in place. And then the HASP gives you the special. The thing about the HASP program is if you look at all the other certifications on home mods, they're open to anybody. The plumber, the bathroom appliance selling, the person, all those other certifications are open to them and don't consider our obligations under our State Practice Act and the Medicare guidelines. What we do with the HASP is teach you as a therapist how to do this as a therapist and what that looks like on deciding whether you need to bill Medicare or not bill Medicare, and then developing your policies and procedures related about that. And we give you examples in a flow chart to put into your procedures manual related to doing that based on those attorneys' opinions.
So if you're interested in any of our programs, we meet with you first, because again, we need to make sure that it's the right fit for you. And then that you're the right fit for the program we have. So if you are at all interested, just email us. And right now it will most likely be Sue. She's been doing a lot of our meetings with people. So, it's not something that you can just go and sign up for, because again, we want to make sure that it's a right fit for you and what you want to do. I mean, we've had plenty of people that we've told it's not a right fit for. So, because just like you want your clients to meet their goals, we want anyone who does our program to meet their goals.
And will this be available to watch again?
So since it's on Zoom, you'll get the recording, or we'll send out the recording. So yeah, you can watch it again. Let me see if there's any other questions. Yeah, Emily, I would encourage you, just even set up an appointment to talk about your options and so forth with Sue or myself. Let's see.
Yes, Katrina, it's late, except for me, who's on the West Coast.
Yeah. Clarice, it's extra late for her. I mean, it's 9:36 for her. So I'm just running through just to make sure I answered everyone's questions. So we'll.
April, thank you. I hope this was helpful, but you probably heard a lot from us before. And I know there's people on here who've been involved in our programs, and hopefully it's been really beneficial because they're still here hearing the information. But as Kyra said, our goal is to help you meet your goals. And that's, we want you to do it in a way where you're compliant and you're not going to end up with long-term problems or implications.
We've had some questions about hospice. Did we answer those?
Clarice did.
Okay.
Or at least partially answer it. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, awesome. Well, I think as I scrolled through, hopefully we got through them. So again, we still have 60 people on here. So just to reiterate a little bit how our programs work, a lot of you already have your business up and going. In our Therapy Business Builder Level 2, we do group coaching calls twice a month, and everyone signs up for their own 10-minute time slot. That might not seem like a lot, but actually in that amount of time, we can touch base, address any issues, get you moving on to where you need to be. We do a networking session once a month, where that's just a time to come in and network, and we bring in usually either a therapist that has an extremely well-run hybrid practice or an expert in a content area that people are needing help on. We do, Steve with Hello Note does a session every month with our therapist, and then we do trainings based on what people need. Like for example, when new rules, regulations come up, then we always try to bring in people to do special trainings on that. So we have a lot more trainings, meetings with that one. Level 1 is really focused on you need stuff to do, and we guide you through the steps so you have that in place. We have the group coaching calls in there, but we don't have all the extra stuff because you don't need the extra stuff. You need to focus on what you need to do. So that's a little bit more about those programs as well. So again, yeah, thank you guys. So you guys go have a great night. I am going to go take a walk with my daughters, and kind of chilly here today. Shocking. I live in North Dakota, I know, but in the summer, it's usually fairly decent. So thanks, guys. You guys have a great day. If you're not in the Next Level OT Facebook group, please join us. We appreciate your guys' support over the years. I can't believe May 2019 is when we started. So over 3 years, so crazy. Clarice and
guys.
Sue, thank you both so very much. Make sure you guys all go love Amplify OT because I mean, Clarice knows her stuff. We're super excited to have her be able to help keep us all compliant. Okay, thanks guys. You guys have a great night.